Kaulig Racing has officially revealed their 2023 driver lineup. Hailie Deegan will make her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut next week at Las Vegas, and Bowman will set out another weekend at the Charlotte Roval. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight on those really quickly. We're going to go ahead and start with paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump on those really quickly. First paint scheme we're taking a look at is Stephen Parsons' 2022 Keffer Volkswagen scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. Good to see another company stepping up to sponsor Stephen Parsons. It's very interesting to see that Volkswagen is sponsoring a NASCAR Xfinity Series car. Pretty exciting for sure. Good to see a new sponsor for Stephen Parsons. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Andy Lawler's 2022 Engines Parts Plus scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. Solid paint scheme, in my opinion. I like the pink on the car. It looks pretty good, and I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at the Roval. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Dillon's 2022 Quick Check scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. I love the green. I like everything on this car. It looks really awesome. It looks great, and I'm excited to see on the racetrack this weekend at the Roval. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Joey Hand's 2022 Blue Oval City scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at the Roval. Solid paint scheme, in my opinion. Not the best one I've seen, but it's pretty solid. I like the blue number. The white's actually pretty decent on the car. Hopefully, Joey Hand will have a good run with Ware Racing this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Bailey Currie's 2022 The Pink Stuff scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. This paint scheme I really like. There's not much going on with it, but sometimes simplicity matters a lot better and means a lot better in my opinion. So it looks pretty good, and I'm excited to see on the racetrack at the Roval. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Mark Truex Jr.'s 2022 Bass Pro Shops Sherry Strawn scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. This scores in homage to Sherry Pollux, Mark Truex Jr.'s long-term girlfriend. This is an absolutely great looking paint scheme. The blue artwork's really good. You see the Bass Pro on the car. It looks amazing, looks incredible, and I'm excited to see on the racetrack this weekend at the Roval. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Sheldon Creed's 2022 National FFF Wheeling scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. I like they've changed up the wheeling scheme a little bit, and honestly, it looks really good in my opinion. I love when we see changes to paint schemes. It makes things look really exciting. It looks really good, and I'm definitely looking forward to see on the racetrack this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. It looks great in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Jason Reed. As it was announced on Monday that Jason Reed has been named the general manager of Knoxville Raceway. Jason Reed's been working at Knoxville Raceway for many years and has a lot of experience as well. So this is a really good move for them to bring him in to become the general manager, hoping for the track to stay long term. And congratulations to Jason Reed on becoming the general manager of Knoxville Raceway. Really exciting in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Michael McDowell. Now, Dustin Albino, who currently works at jski.com, he did a report on Michael McDowell. And he reports that Michael McDowell has had 12 top 10 finishes this season. He says in the first 4 seasons with Ware Motorsports from 2018 to 2021, he has scored 12 top 10s in the first 4 years. So in this season alone, Michael McDowell has already tied what he has done the previous 4 years. I think Michael McDowell has generally been one of the most underrated drivers so far in the 2022 season. He's got more top 10s than a lot of drivers this year, including William Byron, I think Mark Truex Jr. as well, and has done really good this year. I think Michael McDowell is only going to get better in 2023. The only thing he's not done this year is win a race, but I think he surpasses most laps led in a season. So this is really good to see, and very great to see that Michael McDowell continues to make records, and good for Michael McDowell to see that he's doing really good, and it's great to see for sure. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Greg Gaulding. As Greg Gaulding is going to drive the 47 for Mike Harmon Racing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. Greg Gaulding has made a couple starts for Mike Harmon Racing, or attempted to make a couple starts this year for Mike Harmon Racing, but I think every time he's been in there, he's failed to qualify. That being said, I think Greg Gaulding is a pretty good road course racer, so I do think his road course racing background is really going to come into play. Excited to see for sure, and hopefully we'll see Greg Gaulding have a good run this weekend. He'll have to qualify in. Hope he's able to make the field this weekend at the Roval. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brennan Poole. As Brennan Poole is going to drive the 52 for Jimmy Means Racing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. I believe this will be Brennan Poole's second opportunity to make the NASCAR Xfinity Series with the team. He's made attempts with Mike Armour Racing and a couple other organizations, and now we'll have an opportunity to race in the 52 car. Now, Brennan Poole, I think, will have a good chance to make the field. Brennan Poole is a really good qualifier. Sometimes the races don't go as good as qualifying for the team, but it's good to see that Brennan Poole is driving the 52 car this weekend. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Austin Wayne Self. As Austin Wayne Self is going to drive the 32 for Jordan Anderson Racing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. I believe this will be Austin Wayne Self's second attempt to try to make the Xfinity Series field, as he attempted to make the field at Watkins Glen but failed to qualify in that event. Now, Austin Wayne Self, I think he's a decent driver. He's not the greatest driver in the world, and I think if you put a really good road course racer like a Parker Kligerman in the field, I think that he would have a really good chance to make it. I think Austin's a decent driver. He's got a shot to make it, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens if he does make the field, but I'm not sure if he's going to make the field, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about James Davison. As James Davison is making his return to NASCAR, and he'll be driving the 18 for Joe Gibbs Racing this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. James Davison is not the first time he's driven for Joe Gibbs Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and he's been about a year since he last raced with Ware Racing. James Davison, I think, will have a legitimate chance to go and win this weekend. His paint scheme looks really, really colorful and flowery, by the way. I think that's something that's really, really interesting. But I think his paint scheme absolutely looks really, really good, in my opinion. Looks great. And also, it's good to see that James Davison's back. I think he's got a really good shot and really, really good opportunity to go out there and win this weekend. I think he's got a really good shot to get it done, and I think James Davison could and has a really good opportunity to win this weekend in that 18 car. He'll have to beat guys like Ty Gibbs and A.J. Allmendinger to win, but he's got a fast enough car where I think he could honestly go out there and win. I think he's got a good shot to get it done this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. I think he's going to be a threat to win. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Julie Landor. As it was announced yesterday that Julie Landor is going to drive the 44 for Alpha Prime Racing next couple weekends at Homestead Miami Speedway. Julie Landor attempted to make her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut at New Hampshire, where that did not go so well. She was involved in a couple wrecks. First one not being her fault. Justin Allgaier came down into her, and then she had another wreck at New Hampshire later in the race. It's good to see she's getting other opportunity. I think she's got an NFT sponsor, so that's a little bit controversial. But it's a good opportunity for Julie Landor to get some more experience. Hope she can do really, really good in that car, and we're hoping the best for her, and good luck to her as she will be attempting to make the field in the 44 car. They're decent owners points, but they're not the best at owners points, so hopefully she'll be able to make the field. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about William Byron. As Bob Pockers reported on Monday that William Byron's appeal is going to be heard this upcoming Thursday. So tomorrow will be the appeal for William Byron. Now, this appeal is really, really important because William Byron is appealing a 25-point penalty and $50,000 fine that he received after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Texas Motor Speedway. William Byron basically got into the back of Denny Hamlin and crashed him under the caution flag. Now, multiple people would agree with me that I think the penalty was fair, but also some, like myself, would think maybe it was a little bit excessive at the same time as well. I don't think he's going to personally win the appeal. I just don't think he's going to win the appeal, but it's not a bad idea to try to go out and appeal the penalties and maybe get it rescinded. Maybe he gets a 5 or 10 points less that he got from the penalty, and maybe the fine gets dropped a little bit, but I'm not really sure if that's going to be the case. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that, but there's an appeal coming up this week for William Byron, and that will be heard tomorrow. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Cadillac. As Cadillac's 2023 Cadillac LMDH program drivers have been revealed for the 2023 season. And this also is in association with Chip Ganassi Racing. So the three drivers are Richard Westbrook, Alex Lynn, and Earl Bamber, all former drivers of Chip Ganassi Racing, who will be behind the wheel of this Cadillac brand. This car will be going for the World Championship. They won't be competing in IMSA. They will be competing in the World Championship. It's good to see these three drivers are being picked up. Three drivers who won major races in the IMSA and also in the World Endurance Championship. All drivers, I think, contended for the win in Le Mans 24 Hours or have won Le Mans 24 Hours and have won some pretty big events as well, including the Rolex 24 as well. I think these are really, really good drivers in my opinion, so very, very exciting for sure. I'm glad to see that these are the drivers that are going to have an opportunity to race in the LMDH program, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Wayne Taylor Racing, as their 2023 driver lineup has also been revealed, including their driver lineup for the Rolex 24. So Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, and Brendan Hartley are all going to respectfully return to the ride. All three drivers competed in the most recent Motel Petit Le Mans, so they're going to be back. Also, Luis Delatres, who I believe competed in LMDH LMP2 last year, he will be joining the team for 2023. Luis Delatres is an upcoming talent who I think is really, really good. He's been contending for wins in basically the second group, and he will get an opportunity to compete for the overall win. I think he's a really talented and a really, really good driver, so I think this lineup is really, really solid, and I cannot wait for this team to show up and race in the Rolex 24. Hopefully they'll have a good chance to go out there and win. We're going to have to wait to see what happens, but really good to see that those are the drivers competing in the event. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Jordan Anderson. As Jordan Anderson on Monday evening provided a little bit of an update on his condition. He said he had to go back in the hospital, basically do a little bit more treatment, but he says he's improving every single day. This is really, really good news to hear that Jordan Anderson is improving. He's still suffering a little bit from the burns he received at Talladega, but he is improving, which is a really, really positive sign. Wishing Jordan Anderson the best in a speedy recovery, and hoping he will be able to at some point get back behind the wheel of a race car. I'm not sure when that is going to happen, but it's good to see that he is definitely improving, and hopefully we will see him back behind the wheel of a race car in the not-so-distant future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Colton Herta. As according to an article from Racer.com, Colton Herta has signed a multi-year contract extension to continue racing with Andretti Autosport. It's unclear how long the extension is, but I would think it'd probably be a 3 to 4 year extension with the organization. Colton Herta had been in some talk and conversation to go to Formula 1 for 2023, but since he did not get the required points for the Super license, which I think is really stupid, by the way, he will continue driving for Andretti Autosport and IndyCar for the next 2 years. Now, one thing to know is that he did have a contract through 2023 with Andretti Autosport, but there was an opportunity for him maybe to leave and, like I said, go to Formula 1. I think that this is a really good move to keep him in the organization, considering I do believe that he is a very talented and a really, really gifted driver. And I think if he can really just hone in some of those issues he's had where he can't finish races and crash out and pressure gets him, I think that will really help a driver out like Colton Herta. So I think that this is a really awesome move to see that he's coming back to the team. I think he's a really talented and great driver, and very excited to see that Colton Herta is going to be back behind the wheel of this car for the long-term future. He's a great driver and deserves this, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Arrow McLaren SP, as their number and driver lineup has been officially revealed for 2023. Now, we already knew the drivers who were going to be driving for the team, that being Pat O'Ward, Felix Rosenqvist, and Alexander Rossi. But what numbers are they going to be driving? So Pat O'Ward, nothing changes with him. He'll be driving the number 5 car. Felix Rosenqvist will not be in the 7 car, but instead will be in the number 6 car. So he will keep everybody, including Billy Vincent, as his race strategist. The only thing that's changing is his number. And then Alexander Rossi is actually moving to the flagship number 7 car. Now, why is this happening? Well, I think Alexander Rossi has a little bit more sponsorship funding coming over with him that's going to be working with him, including Napa, I believe, will be working with him this year. That Felix Rosenqvist, who doesn't have as much sponsorship or funding. I do think this is a really good move for the team. I think that this is going to be the strongest lineup Arrow McLaren SP has had as an organization. You've got 3 drivers who I believe all finish in the top 10 in points, who are all going to be really, really strong and really gifted drivers. Now, I'm a little surprised that Rossi's not in the 6 and the 7, and he's in the 7, but I think that this is overall still a really, really great move for the team, and I think this team is going to be a really strong team heading into 2023. So I'm definitely really, really excited for sure as well that this is going to be the team heading into 2023. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Alex Blow. As according to an article from Racer.com, that was reported on Monday, I believe Marshall Pruitt wrote this article, Alex Blow is officially going to be joining Aaron McLaren SP heading into 2024. Of course, Alex Blow will continue driving for Chip Ganassi Racing heading into 2023, but he will officially make the transition over to Aaron McLaren SP heading into 2024. This is not a major surprise. McLaren's been wanting to get Alex Blow over there, but McLaren and Chip Ganassi came to agreement where they would be able to allow him to test a Formula One McLaren car and get some experience in an F1 McLaren car. Of course, Alex Blow does have dreams to go over to Formula One one day, but they just signed Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. He has a contract through 2025 at the moment, but I do think Lando Norris has a really good chance to get extended in a not-so-distant future. Alex Blow as a driver, I think, will be a championship threat this year with Ganassi, but I also think when he goes to Aaron McLaren SP, I think that if you put him in there and potentially take him out Felix Rosenqvist, I think you'll have a really strong lineup. But could Arrow expand a four-car team? That's very possible. There's a lot of talk that they are going to be a four-car team for the Indy 500 with Kyle Busch perhaps. But I think that this is a really good move for the team to bring Alex in 2024. Keep Ganassi for one more year where I think he could win his second championship with the team this upcoming season. I'm really excited to see for sure that Blow is heading to Aaron McLaren SP for 2024, and I'm really looking forward to that for sure. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about TV ratings from this past weekend. So let's start off with Formula One. Formula One got a 0.454 rating and 1.036 million viewers on ESPN2. This is up from 588,000 viewers. So this almost took a 200% or 100% jump from a couple years ago in 2019. Remember, though, in 2019, Formula One was not as popular as it is now. Formula One really had the best ratings of the motorsports weekend, in my opinion, so good to see Formula One doing a really good job. Then you get to NASCAR, and the race this weekend got a 1.64 rating and 2.827 million viewers. That is down from 2020's numbers, where they got a 1.92 rating and 3.1 million viewers. Now, why is NASCAR's ratings doing as bad as they're doing? One of the biggest reasons is that we're in the middle of the football season, and football currently at the moment right now is up in viewership at the moment compared to NASCAR, where NASCAR's viewership has gone down and pretty significantly. Now, it's not down as much as, in 2020. It's still a little bit up, I think, for 2021. Of course, that got delayed last year. It's unfortunate TV ratings are just not doing good right now, even on NBC. It moved to an NBC platform. It's not a good thing, and honestly, I'm a little concerned for this weekend due to that reason alone. It is very disappointing and really unfortunate. Ratings are not doing good. We already know the issues. NASCAR's got to do better promoting the races, and we got to find a way to shorten the season up long term. We'll see if NASCAR does that long term, but I'm not sure if they're going to do that. In my opinion, I'm not sure if they're going to do that. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kimi Raikkonen. Now, there was I think it was a Brazilian outlet that kind of reported on this, but according to a Brazilian outlet, Kimi Raikkonen is in talks to join Chip Ganassi Racing's IndyCar team for 2023 and be a teammate with Jimmie Johnson. Reports indicate that Jimmie Johnson will run all the ovals in 2023, and Kimi Raikkonen will run all the street courses and the road courses as well. This is not really that big of a surprise. Trackhouse Racing is a little bit associated with the Chip Ganassi Racing brand, and Kimi Raikkonen has in the past indicated that he would love to go out and race in different forms of racing that is not in Formula One. He basically said he'd love to go and race in IndyCar and race over there as well. And also he's talked about wanting to come back to NASCAR as well. A team could you imagine the same team where Kimi Raikkonen and Jimmie Johnson on the same team, though? That would be absolutely insane. Now, could Kimi Raikkonen maybe drive in the Indy 500? That is very, very possible. I could see Kimi Raikkonen doing it. I would think Kimi Raikkonen would probably run in the Indy 500 because I don't think Tony Khan is coming back next year. I think Tony Khan is done racing in IndyCar to go focus on other forms of racing. But when it comes to this, it's good to see that Kimi Raikkonen is interested, and we're going to have to wait and see if this does happen for sure. Hopefully Kimi does officially come over, but we'll wait and see what happens. It's just a report from Brazil, and sometimes some of these reports end up getting unfactual. There was a report at one point that Tony Khan was going to run a couple of road course races this year, but that did not end up coming to fruition. So, really good to see that Kimi Raikkonen is interested, but we'll have to wait and see what happens if this does get officially confirmed or not. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Justin Marks. Now, we've got a couple things to talk about in regards to Justin Marks. But first thing we talk about is Justin Marks and talking about the changes that they need to know for the car for 2023. And he says the teams need to know very, very soon what changes will be made for 2023. And he explained that it's mainly because of the budget caps. Of course, we'll talk about the next-gen car here in the next story of the video, but when it comes to Justin Marks, he's absolutely right. When it comes to these teams, they got to figure out what their budgets are going to be for 2023, and they got to figure out what kind of money they're going to be spending for 2023 and what kind of money they're not going to be spending for 2023. So they obviously want to know what the plans are for 2023 in regards to the money that they're going to spend, because of course he's a team owner and they're already working on their 2023 budgets. So whatever changes NASCAR is going to be making, we're in the beginning of October. Keep this in mind. We're in October right now, and we still don't really know what the plans are for the car. Now, of course, there is a competition meeting that we'll talk about here in just a second. But I agree with Justin Marks on that they need to figure out what the plans are for 2023 and get those sent out to the teams so the teams know what is going on. So hopefully those will be announced here in the not-so-distant future, and what changes are going to be made to the car are made in the not-so-distant future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as speaking of which, we're talking about NASCAR safety. As basically it was reported by Brian Nolan, who basically kind of reported from Jordan Bianchi, that he says that NASCAR is going to have a meeting later this week in regards to next-gen safety. It's unclear what day that'll be. I would presume that this is going to end up taking place after the test that is going to happen. I believe today, later today, that there is a crash test that's going to be taking place with some new rear clips and body clips on the next-gen car. Obviously, there's a couple big stories we'll talk about in regards to when it comes to the next-gen safety, and a couple of drivers sitting out this weekend at the Charlotte Rumble once again. But, of course, we already know at this point the next-gen car has an issue with the rear of the car, and there needs to be more crush zones on it. Now, NASCAR obviously is updating to make it, I think, where they're going to be a little more crush zones and some crush issues and areas where they can fix some of those major issues with the car. This competition meeting is really important. I wish that these drivers would have been known about this a little sooner, but it's good to see NASCAR is working on and having a meeting with the drivers. I wish NASCAR would publicly come out and say we're working on the car, which they haven't really ever come out and publicly said that they're working on the issues with the next-gen cars. So whatever changes that are going to be coming with the next-gen car, hopefully they get approved and we can hear about those in the not-so-distant future. So hope we're going to know those really, really soon, and whatever changes are coming, whatever they do find from the test, which we'll probably talk about later this week, we'll be able to report on that here on the channel. And we, of course, will hear about that test probably later today and report on that on Friday later this week. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Jimmie Johnson. Now, basically, it was reported from, I believe, Bob Pockers and then Jenna Fryer as well, that Jimmie Johnson, now, obviously, we talk about Project 91. Justin Marks says that Jimmie Johnson could run a third Trackhouse racing car, but it would, very interestingly, would not be the Project 91 initiative. That is very, very interesting, but one of the things with the Project 91 car is they want international drivers to race in the Project 91 car. So that's a little bit interesting that they're not considering Jimmie Johnson for the Project 91 car, but they are considering putting him in a third Trackhouse car in select bucket list events. Now, what events could Jimmie Johnson race in perhaps in that third Trackhouse car? I think 3 or 4 events really come to mind. Number 1, running the double. Jimmie Johnson has talked about that he wants to run the double, and he could run that with a Trackhouse car and an Indy car, because Trackhouse has had conversations to do that, but also they could run if the Honda brand with Chip Ganassi, since Trackhouse Racing's had association with that brand. And then, of course, he could run the double in that number 91 or number 92 car, perhaps. The other 2 events I could see him running are North Wilkesboro. Jimmie Johnson has said that he's been interested in maybe wanting to run at North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race. So that's a very possible option that they could go with Jimmie Johnson. And then finally, the last event I would think he'd consider is the Chicago Street Course. Jimmie Johnson has been open in the past saying that he would love to run at the Chicago Street Course as well. But it's really interesting to me that it's not the Project 91 car, because, again, they're looking at more international drivers to drive that car. But I think if you're going to have an opportunity for big storylines, Jimmie Johnson driving the number 91 or 92 car, for that matter, would definitely be really, really interesting to see. Jimmie Johnson is a legend of the sport and a legend of motorsports. And, of course, Jimmie Johnson has publicly said that he doesn't want to run every single race. He only wants to run a few select bucket list events next year. I think he said around 10 to 12 events next year. So I think a couple NASCAR races could come to play. Jimmie Johnson has also said he would love to run in Le Mans 24 hours, which I agree with him. That'd be really fun to run in that event. But Jimmie Johnson running with Trackhouse would be definitely fun for sure in a third Trackhouse car, which would probably be really, really fast considering Trackhouse has shown the pace and speed to run really, really good. Wishing the best of luck, and we will see if Jimmie Johnson does run with the team. We're going to have to wait and see if that happens here soon. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Cody Ware. As it was announced yesterday that Cody Ware announced he will be sitting out this upcoming weekend at the Charlotte Roval due to some basically footwork and stuff and basically trying to get his feet and legs a lot better. JG Hailie is going to basically drive for them this weekend. Now, why is Cody Ware sitting out? If you watch the upcoming, not the upcoming, but a couple weeks ago at Texas Motor Speedway, Cody Ware suffered a really, really serious wreck where he hit the outside wall extremely hard and then came back and hit the inside wall. Cody Ware tried to get up, but he basically collapsed and was basically taken into basically the infield care center. Now, Cody Ware was awake and alert, but basically was released from the hospital. Now, Cody Ware did race this past weekend at, I believe, Talladega, but did basically have crutches and was walking around on crutches as well. First of all, first thing for Cody Ware is that he's taking this, and I think he's being smart in this situation. Unlike the situation with Alex Bowman and Kurt Busch, I do think Cody Ware has a better opportunity and a better chance to recover and return to the racetrack next week at Vegas. I think in this situation, he's being smart. You don't want to cause another foot injury. I know Carson Osbar, he did end up racing after his injuries that he ended up suffering after Gateway. He did race at Sonoma a week later. But I think for Cody Ware, it makes a lot of sense. So first of all, wishing the best for Cody Ware and wishing for a really speedy recovery. And I do hope we get to see Cody Ware back on the racetrack. I think Cody Ware is going to be back more than likely next week, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. And now we're going to jump on to the next major story of today's episode as we're talking about Alex Bowman. As Alex Bowman revealed on social media last night that he will be sitting out another race this upcoming weekend at the Charlotte Roval. Noah Gragson is going to continue driving the number 48 car this weekend. And the reason being is because he suffered concussion-like symptoms after the race at Texas Motor Speedway. First of all, Alex Bowman, health is the number one priority, and I'm wishing for a really speedy recovery for Alex Bowman. But it is a shame, and I know, like I said, the NASCAR is working on some things with the next-gen car to fix it, but they have got to fix some of these safety issues with this car. We've got 3 drivers sitting out this weekend due to safety issues with the car. Kurt Busch, who we still don't know if he's coming back or not. We know that Kurt Busch, he does want to make a return before the end of the year, but honestly, I don't know if he's going to make a return before the end of the year. You've got Cody Ware sitting out due to a leg injury, but I think he will return before the end of the year. And then now you've got Alex Bowman, who is a younger driver who is out. I think Alex Bowman was only 29 years old, so he's a younger driver. So it's kind of disappointing the younger driver is sitting out another race. Now, of course, I think Noah Gragson will do just fine in his car. But it's a shame that Alex Bowman is sitting out another week due to this. And honestly, I don't know if he'll return. I honestly don't know. Thing is, with different people, when it comes to head injuries, I've not ever suffered a head injury myself. But head injuries can affect people in a different way. You can have concussion-like symptoms for a couple weeks and make a return for the end of the year. And then you can be out for multiple years. It's one thing with concussions is that it's much different than other injuries. Like people who suffer foot injuries and other injuries, they can recover from that. Head injuries are much different. And I do appreciate Bowman is taking his health and safety as the number one priority, which that needs to be the number one priority for him. It's just a shame that this next-gen car has the issues it has, and hopefully we will see Bowman return behind the wheel in about next weekend at Vegas. But I'm hopefully he can return, but honestly, we really don't know at this point. You cannot be hopeful at this point. You just don't know if he will make the return. Wishing Alex Bowman the best in his speedy recovery, and hopefully we'll see him back on the racetrack here in a couple weeks at Vegas. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Hailie Deegan. Now, Hailie Deegan teased a pretty big announcement on her YouTube channel that she was going to be announcing. And she finally officially announced her that she is going to be making her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut next weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on October 15th. And she is going to drive the 07 for SS Greenlight Racing, where she will have pristine auction on the car. This is a really, really huge moment for her because Hailie Deegan has been talked about. We talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago after Bristol, that Vince Welch kind of reported that she was going to be making her Xfinity Series debut, but had not been announced what ride she was going to be driving in. She will drive a 07 for SS Greenlight Racing. A couple things to talk about. Number one, I think that this would be more than likely an SHR prepared car, considering that they basically do have a little bit of experience and they have basically at points prepared SS Greenlight Racing cars, and they do have an alliance with SS Greenlight Racing. And Ford being a pretty big partner, they're going to want to have the best equipment to go out there and perform at the best of her abilities. Also, she does note in there that she has not announced her 2023 plans at this time. They're still working on her 2023 plans. There's a lot of rumors and rumors in the industry that DJR could be switching from Ford to Toyota, and I think the reason that Ford is trying to get her some Xfinity Series experience is they're trying to evaluate to see what she's going to end up doing for 2023 and see if she'll be good enough to race in Xfinity. Now, this has been a very controversial announcement for sure because a lot of people feel like that Hailie Deegan has not performed at a really good level. Hailie Deegan has not led a single lap in NASCAR Camping World Truck Series competition, and she, in 44 starts in the Truck Series, she has only scored 3 top 10 finishes. And this year, she's doubled the DNS she had last year, has been involved in a lot of crashes and incidents this year. I remember at the beginning of the year that there was a talk that she wasn't even going to be able to make some of these Truck Series fields due to her struggles. Now, she did improve as season progressed, and she has improved this year, but it has been a little bit of a rough year for Hailie Deegan. Now, a big question for a lot of people that had, including Eric Estep had, is the hype train kind of rolled off for her because you look how good she did in ARCA West. She won 3 races in ARCA West and won a lot of races over there. Then she goes to the main ARCA series and she does decent. She gets, I think she only got like 5 top 5s, but 21 top 10s. So she did solid in ARCA, but didn't end up winning races. And then in her truck starts, she hasn't done great. But I will give a little bit of benefit of the doubt to Hailie Deegan. I'll explain why I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. Has she done good in trucks? No, absolutely not. Is it a little bit of an interesting move moving her up? And do I think it's a little bit of a crazy move? Yeah, maybe a little bit of a crazy move to move her up. But you have to think about certain drivers. Some drivers' stylistic form of racing that they perform in, they do better in other series than others. Look at Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick, he didn't win a race in trucks, moves up to Xfinity, wins a bunch of races. Another driver, Jimmy Johnson, didn't race in trucks, goes on to have a successful career. And then most recently, Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton, he struggled in trucks in KBM equipment, was not great with KBM. Guess what he does the next year? Goes on to Xfinity and wins 4 races and now is in the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, I'm not saying Hailie Deegan is going to perform like those drivers have. I'm not saying that. But some drivers perform better than others. I think Hailie Deegan actually will have a pretty decent debut in Xfinity. I'll explain why I think she'll have a pretty decent debut. She's going to have a really fast car. I think SHR will prepare that car more than likely. And if Cole Custer can do really good and can win a race with the team, why couldn't Hailie Deegan? Now, I'm not saying Hailie Deegan is going to win. I'm not expecting her to win because I do think Hailie Deegan will actually have a pretty good run. I think Hailie Deegan's actually going to do really, really solid. I really think she is going to do pretty good in that ride. I think Deegan's a really good driver. I really think she is. It's just that she's had a lot of bad luck and she's made a lot of mistakes. But she also hasn't been raced the best. I'll be honest. I don't think that Hailie Deegan's been raced the best. She's been raced around rough around the edges, around the middle of the pack. Should she be running there? Should she be running better? Yes, absolutely, of course. But I think it makes a lot of sense for her to get an opportunity to race in Xfinity. I'm definitely excited for sure. And the announcement's gotten probably 200,000, 300,000 views, something like that at this point. So people are still intrigued to what she is going to do. But she's publicly said that her sponsors she doesn't get sponsored from racing. And the sponsors would rather see how she's doing on social media and would focus on how she's doing on social media than her performance on the racetrack, which is definitely unfortunate for sure. But at the same token, in same time, it makes a lot of sense why they're focusing on her social media presence and they're not focusing on that other stuff. So it's definitely really, really interesting for sure. I'm definitely really excited to see how she's going to do in her Xfinity Series debut. I really am because I'm intrigued to see how she's going to do in her Xfinity Series debut. She's a young driver, has a lot of experience, and I think she's a driver who really, I think, will do really, really solid. So excited to see what she's going to do for this, and maybe this, if she does well in Xfinity, this will help her for 2023. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that to see how Hailie Deegan's going to do heading into 2023. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Kaulig Racing. As Kaulig Racing has officially announced their 2023 NASCAR Cup Series and a majority of their NASCAR Xfinity Series driver lineup. Let's start by talking about the NASCAR Cup Series. So they officially confirmed that Justin Hailie is going to be back in the 31 car for Kaulig Racing in 2023. But they also officially confirmed that AJ Allmendinger, he is going to drive the 16 car full-time in 2023. This will be the first time that AJ Allmendinger will be driving full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series since 2018, where he last competed for JTG Doherty Racing. Let's first talk about Justin Hailie returning to 31 car. This is absolutely a really great move for the team, in my honest opinion. Justin Hailie's been doing really solid this year in the Cup Series. He hasn't been as good as some people thought he was going to be, but Justin Hailie's with a new organization has shown some pretty big promise, has had some top 5s and top 10s, and has been also pretty solid on road courses and super speedways as well. So Justin Hailie returning to the team makes a ton of sense, in my opinion. Now let's talk about AJ Allmendinger going to the 16 car. I talked about this yesterday on the channel, but AJ Allmendinger returning to the Cup Series full-time with Kaulig Racing is a fantastic move in my opinion. AJ joined his team about 3 or 4 years ago. First two races he ran, of course, at Daytona, and then, of course, when he did end up racing for the team later year at Watkins Glen, he did get DQ'd, but finally picked up the team's first victory at the Charlotte Roval. For his first victory at the Roval. Then in 2020, they went on to win a lot of races with the organization. One at the Roval and also one at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Then in 2021, went full-time with the organization and went on to go ahead and win 6 or 7 races last year, including winning the regular season championship and making it to the championship 4. Not only winning on road course tracks, but also winning on different types of tracks like some short tracks and also winning on some intermediate tracks like Michigan and Bristol as well. And then you think about last year as well, where he won the team's first ever Cup Series race when they were a part-time organization. In the Select Cup Series starts that AJ's had this year, AJ has gone on to win this year, not win, but has scored 2 or 3 1 or top 5 and 5 top 10s as well. AJ will absolutely be a threat next year to win races. I think AJ is absolutely going to do really good next year in that number 16 car. I think that he will win a race or 2 next year, and I think he'll easily make the playoffs. I'm not expecting a championship contending run, but if he gets enough points, you never know. There's a Charlotte Roval right there if he makes it to the round of 8, which is very possible at this point. AJ is absolutely going to be a threat to win races next year, and it's just incredible to see the incredible comeback for AJ Allmendinger coming back to the Cup Series next year. I think that's such a phenomenal story and incredible to see that AJ is making his return. I think AJ will get a couple wins next year with the team. I know it's still early to make expectations, and Matt Kaulig did say during the press conference today, but I think it's phenomenal to see that AJ is making the return. Not only did we get some confirmations for the Cup Series, however, but we also got some confirmations for the NASCAR Xfinity Series as well. As it has been expected, Chandler Smith is going to be jumping away from Kyle Busch Motorsports, and he will be joining Kaulig Racing in 2023. He has signed a multi-year agreement with the organization to drive in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and drive a number 16 for Kaulig Racing as well. This is an absolutely huge move, in my honest opinion, for Chandler Smith to jump up to Kaulig Racing. Chandler Smith is a fantastic driver. He is a championship threat this year in the Camping World Truck Series. He has gone on to win, I believe, 2 or 3 races so far in the Camping World Truck Series this year and is an absolute championship threat. He's in really good position. If he doesn't crash out of Homestead in the Truck Series race there, he will be able to easily make the championship 4 and is definitely right now one of the championship favorites. He's been really fast in that 18 car, and they're picking up a really talented driver. And with AJ going up to the Cup Series next year, Ty Gibbs more than likely jumping up there, and then Noah Gragson jumping up next year, I think Chandler Smith is going to be a championship threat next year. I think he gets a couple victories, and he really loves that family-knitted team, as he talked about during the press conference as well. I really think that Chandler Smith is absolutely going to be a threat to be a champion next year. I think that he's going to do a really good job filling the shoes of AJ. I don't expect him to win as much as AJ has these last couple years, because AJ's gotten 4 wins this year in Xfinity. I think Chandler's going to get 2 or 3, though, next year, and will absolutely have a chance of making the championship 4. He'll have some other good competition as well. But also Kaulig Racing confirmed that Landon Cassill is going to be officially returning to Kaulig Racing next year. Really happy for him. I guess he found sponsorship funding for Landon. Landon basically was really unclear what his future was going to be at the team. I didn't think Landon was going to be returning because of the fact that Landon lost that Voyager sponsorship. But for him to return to the team next year is really good to see. Landon's been a very solid driver, and they love working with Landon Cassill. So good to see he's getting another opportunity. Now, in regards to Daniel Hemrick, Daniel Hemrick, they're still trying to find a way to get him back in the organization. They're likely going to have him returning to the team, but they're still working on sponsorship and funding, which is interesting. I thought it'd be the opposite way around, where it was going to be Landon struggling for sponsorship and Daniel was going to get confirmed. But Daniel Hemrick's likely returning to the team. But Kaulig Racing's making some big moves. Of course, AJ, we're going cup racing again. AJ is going to be fun to watch. And then going back and talking about Chandler Smith as well, Chandler Smith is absolutely going to be a championship threat. And I know that he doesn't have as much competition next year because he'll have Brandon Jones next year. He'll have Justin Allgaier and Josh Berry and Sam Mayer, that all junior motorsports group. He'll be against Landon Castle and more than likely Hemrick next year in that championship. But you look at Chandler Smith moving up. And you think about this too. TRD just lost another great talent. And they've lost so many great talents over these last couple of years. They've already lost 3 talents going into next year. Kyle Busch, he's going to be going over to work with Richard Childress Racing next year, and KBM is also going to be leaving. And then you think also about another loss, Brandon Jones leaving Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity Series program to go over to Junior Motorsports next year. But I think Chevy just picked up a big, big key name. And then you think about this with being a multi-year agreement. AJ isn't going to be around forever. Yes, AJ does have a multi-year deal with Kaulig Racing to return to Cup. But going back and talking about AJ is going to be the best version of himself. I think AJ will be really fun to watch. But Kaulig made some big moves today, and I think a lot of these moves are really, really exciting, and I cannot wait to see what Kaulig Racing has in store for next year. You got a really good Cup program going into next year. I don't think they'll expand to 3-car operation. I think there'll be a 2-car team, and Xfinity likely will be a 3-car team with all the drivers returning, with AJ going to Cup, and then Chandler Smith, Landon Castle, and Daniel Hemrick being the team. So that is going to be the Kaulig team heading into 2023, and I cannot wait for those teams to come around. So that is near today's Law NASCAR in Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel, notifications on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Links in the description below for that. And comment your thoughts below on today's video. What are your thoughts about Kaulig Racing's 2023 driver lineup? Are you excited for the team heading into next year or not? And what are your thoughts about Hailie Deegan making her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have race picks for this upcoming weekend at the Charlotte Roval, as we'll discuss picks as we're going into the cutoff race. Then Friday, we'll have a NASCAR news video dropping. Saturday, NASCAR Xfinity Series race review from the Roval. And then Sunday, we'll have the Cup review from the Charlotte Roval as well. And then we'll be getting you guys some upcoming news videos that will be dropping as we get closer to the end of the year. And I'm more than likely not confirming this or not, but I might be having an update video dropping later this week to discuss 2023. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.